think this is a tremendous idea and a great platform so that it's available for other people that's interested to be able to access. Let's see.
Thank
I
you.
very well. I am an industrial engineer by education and by career. I got my undergraduate at Stanford University and my master's at the University of Central Florida. Both were in industrial engineering. I had the great pleasure and privilege of working and learning and growing with UPS for 34 years. I started my career handling packages while I was in college. Had no idea what it would lead to, but it was an organization that was critically dissatisfied. So they were always looking for ways to make things more efficient, more effective, to provide better service. And as an industrial engineer, it was just a perfect match. So I started out doing industrial engineering work for our inside operations. I later did work measurement and process improvement with our drivers. I became a manager, so I had a team of people that worked on both efficiency and service excellence. Our technology support group was also under my umbrella. After becoming a manager, I then became a director. I was on a project in our corporate office with our marketing team. Um, when I started as a director, I had 6 states that I was responsible for. In the Northern Plains area, I later did the same type of work in Minnesota. Um, I was promoted uh, and had a bigger geographic reach with, again, having all the people who are responsible for short-term planning, long-term planning, efficiency, asset management. Um, and it allowed me to be involved in almost every aspect of the business, working closely with our partners in finance, customer service, HR. Um, and then after that, I had a similar role, but in our supply chain arm. So I moved to our supply chain solutions business unit, worked with warehousing and distribution. And it was really interesting because in small package, we worked very hard for all of the processes and the methods and the procedures to be as close to exactly alike, regardless of where you were geographically. But when I went into supply chain, we did everything based on the customer. So it was customer by customer processes based on order profiles and the type of products and how many inventory turns they had. And it was just a different way of doing business. And from there, I went on to work with um, our freight forwarding arm. So again, I had a 360 view of UPS while in those 34 years that I worked there.
Wow, Tandrea, that's actually so inspiring. 34 years with one company and having experienced so much. And the fact that you started off so early as a package handler makes it so inspiring. It's like, when I have come across different posts about how someone was an intern at a company and then they rose to become a very high post, senior level manager or something. And that's like something that I've always wanted to listen from the actual person who has done it rather than just read the LinkedIn post. And the fact that today I'm listening to your journey sounds so inspiring and exciting. So, 34 years, I feel that's such a long time and you have evolved so much. So, what were the early lessons that shaped your leadership mindset when you were adapting to these different roles in the company?
Well, the first thing was, yes, it was a long time, but the great thing was is I never did the same thing more than 3 years. So it was like moving from company to company because I kept having new experiences. And the common thread in all of the experiences were making sure you knew your job and you did your job well. You know, a male-dominated industry and a male-dominated company, um, being there and proving your worth by being able to consistently deliver results was the thing that got you in the door and kept you in the door. But that also allowed you to serve as a leader because people looked to you for either advice or they wanted to know what your experiences were like, or I played the role of mentor to several different people. And that was born out of respect from consistently delivering results.
Definitely. And the fact that you put it so beautifully that surviving in a male dominated sector and a male dominated company requires your results to speak for you. And the fact that you have evolved and done so many different roles in the company shows how beautifully you have performed each and every role for them to have upgraded you so amazingly. So, talking about these different roles, how did you approach to drive innovation in these different roles while maintaining your credibility?
Well, I think one of the things that's overlooked that is exceedingly important is being able to communicate, being able to really explain the whys behind what's being done and explain them in a clear, concise manner before you get to the hows of implementing the new innovation. Allowing people to really understand the why behind what you're doing makes them more open to change because people are inherently resistant to change. And a lot of the changes that we did at UPS during the course of my career were
Mhm,
major. From the
mhm,
outside looking in, it may not seem like a big thing, but for instance, when I started at UPS, everything was on paper. There were very few computers being used. All of our drivers who delivered hand wrote all of the information about the packages every day. That information then had to be filed away. So if someone wanted to dispute a delivery or file a claim, you
mhm,
actually had to go through stacks and stacks and stacks of papers and files to then go through and actually try and find the handwritten delivery for that driver.
it's
Changing from
clear. Yeah.
changing from paper to the electronic clipboard that we refer to as DIAD for 70,000 drivers across the country was a major, major, major change. But explaining the whys behind it, talking about how society and the world is becoming more digital, talking about the competitive advantages that that would give us, allow the drivers to understand and to buy in quicker and adapt more quickly to this major change. So, again, being able to communicate is extremely important anytime you're going to implement new innovations or new technologies.
Wow, that actually sounds so awesome. And I totally believe with it because I feel it does take a lot of work in order to implement a system in such a big company in the first place, and people need to be receptible for that change to be implemented. Because my last internship was at a shipyard, and we experienced that. Like, I spoke to different drivers, to different warehouse workers, and the fact that they were all made aware of why they did a specific way the process, like scanning of the barcodes with whole movement of the cranes and everything. The fact they knew each and every step made it so amazing that they were aware why it was necessary. Because they explained it to me in the start that how they also started just with paper, and that was like the latest innovation they had done of implementing the barcodes. And I got explained all of these details by the drivers, which made it so awesome.
And they
And
did a very good job to make sure that the people at the front line knew what was going on and how it was going to help improve the business.
definitely. And I feel that involves like your task majorly involves a lot of matrix, process, and precision. So, how do you integrate that practical aspects of your work and empathy and mentorship into roles which are so technically demanding?
Well, you know, empathy is something that is very personal. That is, a feeling of understanding that you explain to or that you feel for a person, almost a kinship, in that you're understanding what they're feeling. In a major change, yes, you acknowledge that people may be a little afraid, maybe a little bit skeptical, but you explain also why things are being done, how they're being done. You let them know that it's not anything that is personal of why these changes are taking place, but that it is strictly for the business. You explain how this impacts our customer base, and our people were very, very understanding and very conscientious of the things that we did and how it affected our customers, because the customers are the reason that we have a business. The customers are the ones that pay all of the bills. So you go through and you have your processes, your methods and procedures. And again, that's part of the whys. This is going to help our customers run their businesses better. This is going to help our customers grow. By helping our customers grow, we can provide more jobs and have more job stability. So again, you acknowledge when people are having some apprehension, but you can't afford to let that get in the way of anything that's being done.
That is actually such a beautiful piece of advice that you actually just provided us. And I think if we, as the newbies who are going to be leading in the future, are able to adapt it, then things would become a little easier for us to implement if we take this little piece of advice into implementation. And talking about how hard it is for the different changes to take place, when in your 34 years, which was the biggest technological or different change which was implemented, which you saw having the biggest impact?
Oh, definitely going digital.
Mhm.
Being able to get away from paper, being able to just change all of the methods, processes, and procedures to allow for digitalization was by far the biggest change. And it's a change that if we hadn't made, we probably wouldn't be in the business because we couldn't be competitive. The world is digital now, so we couldn't stay analog and still be successful.
Definitely. And that actually sounds like a beautiful and a very realistic answer, because I think that one change which probably would have taken some months, then after the implementation led to such manifold high growth for the company that the people who actually accepted it would have seen as results for their acceptance that, okay, we understand it practically now why you were forcing on it so much that we had to change from paper to technology. And
Yes.
you have been a founder. You founded your own supply chain consulting company. What vision did you carry forward from your UPS years? And what are the new challenges or freedoms that you discovered as an entrepreneur?
Foundationally, understanding processes and then being able to show ways to improve processes.
Mhm.
I've worked with some very, very intelligent young people who have startups who did not have any practical experience in the transportation realm. Worked with a company actually that was in London,
Mhm.
and they again were technically extremely savvy. But when it came to just the bottom line of sorting and delivering packages timely, they didn't have any experience there. So they were making little mistakes that had big consequences. And being able to explain why the change was needed and how it would impact them made
Yeah.
them very receptive to making those changes. So again, taking that foundation from UPS of always being critically dissatisfied, looking to save the most minute bits of time, and being extremely quality and
Mhm.
service focused, I can take that to any type of business, but it definitely holds true in anything transportation.
That is so awesome. And you have actually been recognized for cost reduction and process improvements. So, talking about this amazing experience, when we talk about transformation that literally takes place in every business, what is that one skill that leads to acceptance faster for individually for us when we switch roles? So talking about your journey, you said you every 3 years you have changed roles. I'm sure it wasn't an easy process for you either when you did that. So what kept you going and performing just amazingly in all the different roles?
Being a great listener,
Okay.
because listening is a overlooked component of communication. I would go, and it didn't matter what level of management I had achieved, going and talking to the people at the front line, the people who actually do the job, hearing some of their concerns, understanding how to communicate those helped tremendously. One of my roles, or one part of my role, was being was approving major expenditures. So we would have people who would come and say, "This is the need. This is why it's needed. This is what the outcome is going to be if you make that investment." Because I spent as much time as I did listening to the people who actually performed the work, I was able to digest the projects that were coming in at a much more foundational level, and to really be able to determine if this project that was being proposed would actually give the return on investment that was being documented. So listening, understanding, staying current. Processes change, procedures change as technology evolves. So you have to stay current. You can't make today's decisions based on yesterday's knowledge. You have to stay current in order to make sure that you can make the best decisions for your business.
Wow, that's actually something very different than all the different kind of advices that I have heard, and that sounds like a very, very major piece of advice for our future growth, that being a good listener. I think starting from intern level to highest level, as you just described, it is important that we listen so we are able to make the change that they are asking us to make. Like the customers, for instance, in your role played such an important role, and even different levels we can make the change if we are listening to what is being told, that okay, this is the issue, this is the solution, we're not sure why things are working this way, and I'm gonna try. I think I'm gonna be starting my first job will be at a very fresh level, so I'm gonna try and listen as you just said, and I'm gonna let you know how my listening skills have helped me fix my career journey.
Excellent.
And talking about mentorship, I am super amazed by the fact that you are mentoring people. I'm convinced that 34 years of your experience and the amazing personality that you are is definitely helping people out there. So I would love to know, what advice would you give to emerging leaders about finding mentors and learning continuously?
I would say get involved. So if your company has any type of volunteer events,
Mhm.
participate. You can volunteer with your company, but also volunteer places with groups outside of your company, because that lets you see people in a different light and helps you to understand who you may be most compatible with. Seeing people outside of the business environment, outside of meetings, will also let you see what some of their likes are, and you may find a different type of connection point to make that entry into being a mentee with that person easier, because you already have a connection. I would also say, especially for women, do some things outside of your comfort zone. Learn the basics of playing golf, so that when there's company tournaments or people are getting together on the weekend, you're very comfortable because you understand the etiquette. You may not be the longest driver or have the straightest putts, but if you understand and can be on a part with some of your leadership for 2 or 3 hours, the knowledge that you can absorb with that is huge. If golf isn't your thing, there's tons of tennis groups. Pickleball is emerging. But again, that allows potential mentors to see you outside of business, to see how you carry yourself. And that may also make them more comfortable connecting with you. If you have affinity groups in your organization, whether it's, women's leadership or any of the other types of groups where people who already have a common experience get together and talk about business, that again allows you to see people where in an atmosphere where they may be a little more comfortable. And again, you can determine who you think is someone you would be most compatible with, and it makes it easier for you to approach that person. If your company or organization has documented mentoring programs, by all means, sign up. Sign up just so that you have that experience of talking with someone that your organization has already identified as being a leader, and you can learn from them both about business in general, about your company culture, about other opportunities, about positions that you may not know about. It's just a great way to connect and continue to learn and grow.
Wow, that's actually um, something that I really, really respect and loved because, to be honest, this today, each and every answer that you have provided me has been so, so different from the generic answers that I also prepared myself to listen to. Like, like be consistent, be curious. That's the most answers that I've heard. But be a listener, play golf to know someone outside of work are the kind of answers which I think stay behind, and they're gonna be actually staying in my mind for sure because I literally differentiated it from the generic answers that I've heard. So thank you so much for these amazing life lessons. I already am starting to love the idea of you mentoring the people around you because I can imagine the impact you might be having on their career and as well as their personality growth that would be taking place under your mentorship. So
But
thank you. You are actually doing a great job already.
thank you.
Talking about your own career journey. So switching from leading large teams within UPS to advising multiple clients in consulting must shift how you measured your success. So how do you think about the impact and how do you compare it to the different worlds that you have experienced now?
From let's go with the mentoring.
Mm-hmm.
It is so fulfilling when you're talking with a mentee and you reflect back to them something that they've said and they have that aha moment. You can see it in their eyes, you can see it in their face. And I've had this comment made several times. I never thought about it that way. You know, I know that I said that, but I just didn't actually hear it the way you're presenting it to me. Um, or, wow, that's exactly what I've been looking for. That's the answer that I needed. And then to hear them come back and tell me when they put it into practice, the difference that it made, whether it's with their teams or the difference that it made with them having a critical discussion with their boss to get something done. But when they report back that the things that we discussed had an impact either in an immediate situation or in their career, that's the most fulfilling thing in the world.
Wow, that's actually so awesome. And I can actually imagine the amount of satisfaction you must be feeling because I could see it on your face when you were giving me this answer. And that definitely is much, much more valuable, I would say, than what I meant in terms of success. Like the way I was asking was literally like the monetary way, like how do you see it? But your answer melted my heart. So thank you for that awesome answer advice that a 22-year-old girl like me and many other girls out there who are going to start in the logistics supply chain industry need to know. So not only survive, but thrive in the sector just as beautifully as you did.
Be a continuous learner and
Mhm.
also understand that you really can learn from anyone. So make sure you stay current because the industry, with the automation and with the influence of AI and with the data management being so hugely important now, things are changing. Things are changing and they're going to continue to change. So just make sure you never become complacent with what you know. You always look to continuously learn. That also makes you a very valuable team member. That makes you a very reliable asset and makes you a valued asset that you stay current and continuously learn and then be able to break concepts down and communicate them to people who may not be as astute as you are.
Thank you. That actually sounds like a wonderful piece of advice, and I'm gonna try my level best to implement it when I get my first job or the next internship where I can learn from each and every person and make a change as amazingly as you did. Thank you for enlightening us today and giving us those unique lessons which are not at all generic, but totally coming from your amazing experience of 34 years. Thank you for joining me today and helping us understand the world a little better.
You're very welcome and thank you for having me again. I think this what you're doing is great and I wish you much success with this, ladies, leadership and logistics, and with your career.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you.